So now to introduce my co-host. Brian is my older brother, a husband, a father, a dog dad, an expert horticulturist, a psychonaut, a CT technologist, and a burgeoning massage therapist who shares my curiosity and understanding why we do what we do and why humans in general do what they do. Brian, did I cover it all?
Oh, it's a good start.
Scratch the surface.
How you doing?
I said, yeah, it's been a hard month. I'm not gonna lie. I think, well, when we dive into like what hard thing are we doing this month, because we have to do hard things, it's part of growth, right? Like I'll dive in. But how are you doing?
It's been a hard month.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, some definite ups, some definite downs. It's life.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to dive into this and kind of hear a little bit more about what's going on in your world. But I wanted to share with you that I had this like epic realization the other day. And I never realized that we have been surrounded by so many clairvoyant people in our lives.
Sure.
So we took so much shit growing up for the Brian and Kristen show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real thing.
The Brian and Kristen show. Oh, I'm excited.
Take that, guys.
Suck it.
So let's start off on a good vibe feel. What is your win of the month?
Let's see. My win of the month. A big one for me is I just completed on Halloween. So not really this month, but in the last 30 days. Ran my first 5K that I have run in, well, since 2019, I believe, when I was running with you.
Yeah.
So challenged Brandon to run like a couch to 5K program, which then life got in the way a little bit right at the end. And so we had to postpone our 5K run, but I completed mine on Halloween. He completed his 2 days later. And that'll be my win of the month, because starting back at having not run in 3 years, that was a struggle. But excited that we both made it to the end.
Awesome. And for those listening, Brandon is Brian's son. That's not the dog father part, the human father part.
The actual father part.
Right. Yes. So my win of the month, I guess, kind of ties into around exercise. I made a decision on Sunday. Well, actually, I should track this back. So I had a doctor's appointment last week because I've been having this like low back pain issue that I can't seem to get it to go away. So he has sent me on my way to physical therapy to figure out like what needs to be strengthened, what do we need to look at. Because it's gotten to the point where like even bending over to pick something up, like I have to hold on to something just in case I can't make it back up. So,
welcome to 40s.
40s are so fun. So on Sunday, I got this bright idea that I was like, well, I don't see the physical therapist for a couple of weeks, so I'm going to go ahead and start doing some body weight exercises. Nothing crazy, just start to tap into that a little bit, test the waters, put a toe in. I don't feel like I did a really hard workout. This is now day 2 post-workout, and I am so sore. I can't even sit on the toilet with that, again, granny handles to help put me. I'm scared to get in the bathtub because I'm like, I don't know if I'll be able to get out. I am walking around the house like literally an old lady. I'm taking Advil as often as I possibly fucking can. He did prescribe me some muscle relaxers, but they don't do anything for like this kind of muscular. This is just lactic acid buildup, right? Like, so it's a win because, good for me for doing the motivating thing and being
absolutely.
Like,
you got up and you went, you showed up.
Yes.
That's like the hardest part, period.
So,
the hardest part.
It's a win.
So I know it hurts, but the reframe, like it's a little reminder that you did show up.
Yes.
And I don't know, especially when I'm going to the gym regularly. I use that as my, um, like I kind of let it pace my workouts and stuff, but also I play this stupid game where I'm excited for something else to hurt. Let's take it out of the sitting on the toilet and let's go with I can barely pick up a pen. Um,
Yeah.
let's get those shoulders and traps going, and then by the time those I literally can't pick up a pen, it's time to go not be able to sit on the toilet again.
Yep.
Um, and it goes. I mean, it really does. It goes way fast, especially when you start regulating your workouts to not torture yourself like that.
Yeah.
But honestly, like I need to get back to the gym, and I look forward to that. I look forward to being the store. It is that reminder that I showed up and I'm doing something for myself,
Yeah.
which is huge.
Yes.
Also, from your friendly massage therapist, um, you know, you could schedule one of those after your workout and disperse some of that lactic acid and
Yeah.
probably be able to sit on the toilet.
Yeah. Massages are so expensive now. Like they
They
used to be
are,
like almost this like a little bit bougie benefit that ooh, treat
right?
me every once in a while to massage kind of thing. Now it's like that's got to be on a quarterly basis because it's insane. At least it is here.
I mean, super shop around. Also, I will say by the time like a a well advertised spa is going to be a lot more expensive than your solo practitioner
Yeah.
renting space kind of thing. Massage Finder is a good one. Um, oh, you always send it to me and I always have to download it again. Um, I'll come back to
We'll come back to that.
it.
I think I know what you're talking about, but it's like
Mind, body, soul.
oh, it is mind body, I believe. I've got the app right
Okay,
here. I'll just check that.
that's the one then.
Yes, mind body. Great place to find gyms, massages, facials. It's like everything in that kind of realm.
Yeah, so Mind Body is a place where I would look, because a couple places you've referred me, and then a couple places that I've looked on my own, go through Mind Body to
Yeah.
schedule,
Yeah.
and it's easy to price and compare shop there.
Yep. Great resource. Good job.
Yes.
Nailed that one. Okay, so now the hard thing. This is where it's going to get even more.
I mean, going to the gym, this is like a dual purpose, but keep going.
So what hard thing are you doing right now? So gym is one of them. Anything else hard that you're
I mean, this will a lot of mine just tie in all the way through. So the hard thing I'm doing right now is schedule balancing. Um, and not only am I bouncing days, I am bouncing coworkers as well as bouncing shifts. Um, so twice within the last week, I have had a complete schedule change. And you and I will need to talk about this on a personal level at some point. Um, I got I in my job I share a schedule. So there's team A and team B, and that covers out the days for the week. Um, I got bumped from team A to team B. I got bumped from swing shift to graveyard.
Is there a little bit of childhood that hurt in that one? When you got bumped from like A team to B team in high school sports or junior high sports, and you're like, wait just a minute.
Two different sides to that. Per the teams, no, I felt really good because they're both vying for me. They both want me. But on a management level, I'm the leftovers. I'm the guy that I'm low man on the totem pole, and this is that friendly reminder that I have no say, and that I will end up wherever the biggest hole is to patch.
Yeah.
So, and being the low man on the totem pole, I really don't have any say.
Right.
So
it's always the point in time though that you're like, God, I can't wait for them to hire the next person. So I'm no longer the low man on the totem pole.
Yes, radiology students start applying, please. Right. The job market is alive and desperate.
It's thrivingly desperate.
Yes. Get those apps out, kids.
Travelers too.
Oh, not for us.
Mm,
That's part of the problem. We are hypothetically, although we can get into the status of healthcare on this.
yeah.
We set a hard line in the sand, no more travelers by the first of the year. We then proceeded to change the name of travelers. So I believe we have 3 travelers that are becoming contract employees
Oh,
and are
I
going
see
to
what they
do
did
a
there.
single 6-month contract.
Mm.
They get to keep whatever shift they were on already. And
Interesting.
they make more than double what staff employees are making. The downside is they do not get benefits. But yeah, so we're going from travelers to contractors,
Okay. Okay.
and which is what a traveler is, but
Yeah.
it's basically a 6-month travel contract.
So are they
And I
paying
don't
their
think they
per
get their
diem
housing and
too?
stuff.
Oh, they don't get their housing. So they have to figure that out
I
on their own.
don't think they get housing, and I just think they get a whopping wage.
Right. Okay. I mean,
So
wow.
it's not as lucrative as traveling, but
Yeah.
it still hurts a
What a
little that the guy
workaround.
standing next to you is making more than double you
Oof.
for doing the exact same job.
And sometimes even less, to be
Right.
honest,
True that.
because they know that
We've
they're
got
not
good ones,
forever,
though.
ever.
I will say we've got a crew of really good folks, so
Well,
I'm
that's
thankful
good.
for that.
That's good. So my hard thing.
Yep.
So I'm doing this whole like identity recalibration. You know, when you go through like big changes in life and then you get to the other side and you're like, who the fuck am I now? Because
Oh
that
yeah.
many pieces of your life have changed. So this came up in my coaching call a couple weeks ago. And, you know, sometimes it's fun when you make like these realizations, you're like, oh, there's the answer. And it feels so good. This was one of those where you realize you're like, God, I got to go back and do all that work again about like figuring
Right.
out who I am, what values I have that are most important to me right now. I don't
Right.
think my core values necessarily have changed all that much, but there's obviously some dissonance that I need to kind of work out.
Sure.
And this thing came up in our discussion, and I wanted to see if your mindset is the same, because usually you have the same dark mindset that I do, but
Right.
maybe not in this. So we were talking about losses of identity, and she asked me, she's like, you know, so what loss of identity did you lose? And I was like, well, being a daughter to a father.
Sure.
And I said, so I no longer see that as an identity that I have. And I see myself, even like if my mom were to pass, then I would say that my identity as a daughter is gone completely. And she seemed a little bit stunned. And I was like, do you not think that way? She's like, no. And I was like, huh, well, okay, maybe this is like my dark, sinister, I don't know, side.
I don't
What do you
know
think?
if I would lose the identity as much as maybe gain more. Like the first thought as you were talking was like, you don't stop being a daughter, you just start being an orphan.
Oh, see, there's dark and yes. Okay. Thank you. Switch
Yeah.
that out.
So, but you're still a daughter. I mean, because that's a birthright. Like the moment you come into an existence, you're a daughter. You're a daughter. I'm a
Yeah.
son.
I mean,
No
and I
matter
guess you could
what,
look
I'll
at
always
this in
be
the
someone's
woo-woo
son.
sense too, of like, I'm a daughter of Mother Earth, or like
Sure.
dad's spirit is still out there in the ether. So therefore
Absolutely.
I am still a daughter to him.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I think definitely. I mean, I guess some things that I have that haven't happened yet, but are on their way, um, are those anniversary kind of things. Like in this, I'm gonna say it's super dark. I don't mean it as dark as it sounds, but I mean that's one last phone call on Christmas I have to make. Um, and I don't mean that in a good way, really. I'm just like, oh,
It's also one less phone call I'm going to receive on Christmas.
right. And I'm looking down and I'm thinking, well, there aren't that many people on that list to begin with, and now it's one shorter. Um, I have, a couple calls of not, I actually have a few calls to make on Father's Day. Of Obviously they're not all my dad. Um, but there's some people I reach out to on Father's Day that have either lost kids or didn't have kids and have represented sort of that male role model in my life that I make contact with. Same thing there. I was like, wow, that's going to be weird. It's
Yeah.
one name shorter on that list. But I don't so much feel that changes my identity. I can see where it would a little bit more for you, just because you spent a good chunk of the last year actively managing that. Um, right now, I feel like maybe part of it is I'm dealing with a lot more of it now.
Yeah.
And so that void hasn't sunk in as much because I'm still
Mm.
having to deal with it.
Yeah. You're like dealing
Um,
with the aftermath of all yeah,
right.
the fallout.
And so there's still a little bit of comic bitterness to thanks, Pops. Uh, thanks for this.
Told you so.
Um, yeah. And but I mean, as far as identity, like someday we can go deep into my trips to the ether. Um, but especially after my first one, that was a literal like identity change. Like
Mhm.
I quit my job, like
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Every single aspect of my life made a hard 180. And then I got really comfortable thinking, okay, this is who I am. And then life gave me a really hard bitch slap. And made me realize that identity isn't stable. It's not linear. Um, I mean, I think I had the discussion with you that I would never, ever, 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 ever work in a hospital again. And then here I am working graveyards, um, doing the exact job that I said
I would never do
I
again.
would never do again,
Yeah.
and how much I hated it.
Yeah.
I mean, and then life said, well, want to bet? Um, and presented a scenario where I really didn't have an option. Um, and at first, I might have been a little bit angry about that, but now I actually kind of find it comical, um, that you can try and push something away. It's going to loop back around for you.
Yeah.
I'm lucky this time in that, like I said, I'm surrounded with a really good group of people,
Hmm.
um, which was nice to. It's the same scenario, but with a different cast,
Yeah.
and that's made it a fresh experience. Um, and different. I mean, it's a different hospital. It's a different like region of the U.S. And so I'm getting to see how things are done here as opposed to where I'm from. Um, but I guess the lesson I'm taking away from this is I will never, ever, ever say never, ever, ever again.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I think that tempts the fates. But along with that, I lost so much. I'm not practicing massage right now, um, which is super depressing to me. There's just not that many hours in a week.
Hmm.
On my long weeks, I put 60 hours a week in at the hospital. That balances out with a short week, but um, that's not conducive to a massage schedule, of being available from this time to this time on these days, um, for right now.
Yeah.
So I thought for sure, and I get frustrated at all the energy and effort I put into going to massage school and starting a practice, and only to be like, well, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Um, it's still there for me. It's still part of my identity. I will still tell people I'm a massage therapist. But in that respect, I feel very out of line
Yeah.
with my identity. But I'm trying to look at it as, like you said, my core values are still the same, and the finish line still looks the same to me. It's I read the map wrong,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a lot more convoluted trail to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I completely identify with all of that. You know, I was very, very vocal about like, fuck ultrasound, never going back to that shit. That's the last day I ever step in I mean, I was like a bull in a china shop with that shit. It was like, deuces, guys.
Right.
And then life hands you a situation and you're like, shit, this is the only option I have if I want to survive. So I'm going to eat shit and I'm going to go back and I'm going to be an ultrasound tech. What I will say is I think that hiatus plus doing the coaching program, coaching people, doing the podcast and hearing all these different perspectives, it gave me a different perspective when I went back into it. So I see things very differently now than I did when I was in like anger sonographer position.
Sure.
I don't get upset with the stuff that I used to get upset about. It's just like, it is what it is. There's no point in fighting it. There's no point in getting upset about it. And I feel like it's been a little bit of a struggle to get back into the coaching, back into the podcast for lack of time, but also just because I feel like I'm still kind of in like that recovery phase of like coming out of a hard situation.
Yeah. We'll call it the crummy summer.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, there's good things and bad things about it. I think, you know, with the identity calibration, I think for me, it's just looking at like, you know, what are the bigger pieces of my identity right now? And what do I need to foster a little bit more? Are there values that are maybe outside of my core values that just I need to be paying more attention to them in this current season of life? But I think it really all comes down to, and I know we'll probably touch on this when we talk about some of the podcast episodes that we listen to. I think it's so important to have a fluid identity, to just not be attached to all of the things, the roles, the who's. If you don't attach to that and just let them come and go, it's way easier. It's so less stressful.
Agreed. I think more than the roles, I think it's important to be attached to your values. I think the value check-in is probably the most important part of that. And reassessing how you display and embody those values despite what your labeled identity is right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that is always going to change, I think.
Yeah. We have no idea what identity shifts are coming up for us. Like, oh boy.
I mean, and that's the point. It could change tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a big lesson I learned from Dad passing away is I thought I had more time. I thought there was going to be at least a full other trip back once we got home from Spain. And that was what, 5 days in, 6 days in, 6 days into 40. So if nothing else, I thought at least 2 months short of what I had expected. And the big lesson there was it could be tomorrow.
Yeah.
It could be tomorrow and the whole situation could be out of control. And not what I planned.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we find security in like when expectations are set, like the palliative care team is like, oh, you've got like 4 to 6 months kind of thing. Get him home. Hospice comes out, like third day, the hospice worker's there. And she's like, he's got about a week. And it's like, what?
Yep.
This is not what we had planned for.
Yeah, right.
We have family in Spain.
Right.
Yeah, big lesson there. That it's like you can't always depend on the experts. You can't always, when somebody sets an expectation, they change all the time. And yeah, that was wild. Fluid identity. Okay. So what is the status of healthcare? Can I say your state?
You can say my state. You don't go further than that.
Okay.
Because I can obviously be on the hook for disparaging comments.
For sure. Okay. So what is the state of healthcare in Tennessee?
In Tennessee. Oh,
oh boy.
So I guess I'll use this opportunity to share with you. I had my 60-day review.
Mhm.
It's a self-review. Because I don't know, we don't have the staff to actually review me.
They just hop, skipped, and jumped over my 60-day review. So
yeah, so my 60-day review. I got several things on this. One, I mean, they feed you this little survey thing that you have to fill out, but none of the questions are pertinent. So specifically, the question was, how do you feel we are doing at our 5-star customer service experience?
didn't know that was a thing. Are we a hotel?
Where do I begin with that comment? Little paragraph box down below, for your explanation. They're not yes and no review questions. I love the assumption that you have a 5-star customer experience, customer review experience. That, I guess, that could be identified. I was going to Google it real quick. There's no way it's 5 stars.
Do you have any evidence to support this claim?
Honestly, my comment on it was, I cringe at being at the thought of being a patient here.
Yeah.
How is it here? Overcrowded, understaffed, 13-hour ER waits.
Mm-hmm.
I will say my hospital is super efficient at getting you at least eyeballs on you. You get triaged by either a mid-level or a provider. And they're very, very fast and efficient with that. That said, I think that sets the expectation that the rest of your visit's going to go like this.
It's going to be this rapido.
Yeah, and so like a common thing is like I saw someone for 5 minutes when I first got here, and then I haven't seen anybody for 6 more hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, we'll say this is a patient that doesn't need their vitals checked and that kind of thing. But especially at a busy hospital and a trauma center, your infected toenail does not qualify as important.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's important to you, but it's not important.
Yeah.
And that person is, I mean, easily sit there for 13 hours.
For sure.
Easily.
Yes. Now, do you pick up patients from the waiting room? Like they get triaged and this mid-level provider has done like their quick and dirty, done vital signs, maybe drawn labs, and then they put
drawn labs, ordered imaging. Labs and ordered imaging. Yep.
Okay. And so then you have to go get them from the waiting room. They're not actually even back in the ER yet. Take them back to do
I get them from all sources.
Okay.
So I get them directly off the chopper. I get them out of an ER room. I get them from inside the hospital. I get them from the waiting room.
Yep.
And we run an outpatient schedule.
Yes. In the middle of all of that hotness.
In the middle of all of that.
Yeah. Here's my deal with the waiting room thing, because these mid-level providers, I think it's great that they're doing like an initial triage, like what's the severity of this? But there's so many times I would say I would err on the side of it happens more often than not that they order exams that are not necessary because they haven't collected enough information about what's really going on with the patient. So it'll be like, oh, we're going to
Correct.
send you back for a gallbladder ultrasound. And then you find out that they don't have a gallbladder. And
Right.
it's like, well, here we go back
Because
to the waiting
they
room.
don't, and we dumb it down for patients. We don't tell them that we're going to be doing a gallbladder scan. We call it a belly scan.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to send you back for a belly scan. What they ordered was an abdomen limited for gallbladder,
Yeah.
right? And I don't think that we treat patients with enough. I'm not sure what the word is. We don't give them enough benefit of the doubt that they might understand their own problems,
Yeah. That they can advocate for themselves.
pervades your entire experience at the
Yes.
hospital. So we dumb things down, or I shouldn't say we dumb things down, because I think that's important to do sometimes, is to put things into layman's terms. But I don't think people fully like, if you're too smart, you don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you take it all the way to second grader, and really you could have stopped at high school.
Yes.
And if you had said gallbladder, they might have said, oh, I had that removed. Instead, we say belly scan, and they're like, oh, it is my belly that hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you went too far with the layman's terms.
Yes.
For me, it's a little bit more, we're going to do the most bang for our time.
Which is
So
going to be CT.
Yeah, my inappropriate exam stuff tends to be way over ordering.
Yeah.
Or in line with the not spending enough time with the patient, there's more to the story, and that would have helped deduce what the appropriate scan was.
Yeah.
And so we order like really real, oh, stroke versus a seizure. Either the patient doesn't say that they have a history of seizures, or I'm not sure the thinking behind like triages, but you say you're dizzy, you are getting a full stroke workup, which will show nothing related to a seizure.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, you could just be dizzy because you're dehydrated.
You could have an ear infection.
Yeah.
You could just be 70.
Yeah. You could just be in your 40s and still trying to figure out like how to accommodate to life.
Grandma and Papa prone to UTIs.
Yeah.
That'll mess someone up real bad. That's a really common one for us. We do CTs for UTIs all the time.
Yeah.
Something that could easily be solved with urinalysis.
Yes.
But Anna had several this week with you have to cover your ass.
Yes.
I actually had a provider tell me that, like, directly. Well, I need to cover my ass.
And there's a part of that, like, I actually have a little bit of appreciation for them when they will actually admit that this is just a CYA.
100%.
And I'm like, okay, cool. It's the ones that
100%.
are like, that won't admit that they're just trying to cover their ass. There's a reason why I'm doing this. And you're like, real, okay, let's get real.
Right. I will also say that the amount of time that, I don't know about mid-level. Oh no, I do know about mid-levels. Mid-levels and even your MDs, the amount of time they get trained on imaging is obscenely low.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pathetic. I mean, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they all take the same how to be an asshole class though. On Don't Back Down. Don't let people question your judgment. You're in church. And I get that. That's important. It actually is important in like a trauma scenario where
Right,
you
right.
need people to listen to you on the first round right now. I just think some of them really take that to heart and take it too far,
Yes, and everything.
and cannot listen to an outside perspective
A
to save their
rational
lives.
outside perspective. We're like,
Right,
you're explaining, you're like, hey, we just did this exam yesterday. She's a frequent flyer, comes in all the time with the same complaint. There's nothing that the ultrasound from yesterday isn't going to show today.
right,
And so why, and the reasoning behind this for me is twofold. One, it puts the patient through another exam, another thing. Second, let's look at why the cost of healthcare is so high. It's because
right,
of these extraneous exams that didn't need to
right.
be ordered. It's like we all have a part in this. Yeah, they don't want to listen. They're like, nope, we're doing it anyway. Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's the current state of the healthcare system broken.
Broken.
Very, very broken.
I actually interviewed
Like my
yesterday
willpower.
morning. I interviewed, she's a former pedonc doctor. And she was talking about like, she's like, I feel like I got out of healthcare like before it like broke. And she's like, and I know at some point it's going to break. And she's like, and I don't know if I'm going to know that happens because I'm not in the industry anymore. And I'm like, well, I'll let you know just from being in the industry right now. Like it's already broke. It hasn't completely like collapsed, but it's broken.
Yeah.
And I don't see a lot of fixes for it.
I don't see a lot of fixes for it. I really don't. And I just wonder how much of it is. It's on all levels, I guess. Like it just, I don't ever remember that many people showing up to the ER for the most
Yeah.
ridiculous things.
Yeah. At 2:00 in the morning.
Right. Oh, my word. For the things people will come in at 2:00 in the morning for the red spot on their arm that's been there for 6 months.
Yes.
But tonight they got a free moment and it needs taken care of right now.
Right now, 2:30 a.m. I need to know what this bump on my arm is.
Yeah. I mean it starts at that level on one side, and then I mean I'm sure I'll just rain hell on myself for this, and it ends with corporate greed on the other side. Like
Yeah.
it's and everything sandwiched between those two things. Just I I'm astounded every day I go into work at I swear I've scanned everyone in this entire city. If you looked at my workflow. And I just, where do the sick people keep coming from? And that's a whole other, like, we can like loop that back out and around to take care of yourself, people.
Yeah. But there's
Just
no education, there's no resources around that.
no, no, because I mean, exactly. There's nothing healthy about healthcare.
Yeah.
And it just feeds the machine constantly.
Yeah.
It's entertaining though.
I mean, it is. I think what I've struggled with the most over the last month, it's actually just kind of sad to me. Like we'll get orders for, I call them kids because to me they're kids now. Kids in their early 20s, and they send them over for a gallbladder ultrasound or a liver ultrasound, and they have fatty liver and they have gallstones. And that used to not be something you saw in 20-year-old humans. That was like when you get up into the 30s and the 40s that people start cracking that down. It breaks my heart. It breaks my damn heart because I'm like, you have your whole life ahead of you and you've already started damaging your liver, whether that's your diet, whether that's alcohol, whatever it is. Shoot, man, that's just depressing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, this goes so many different ways, but just the basic ability to care for yourself, on the most basic levels, nutrition, exercise, those things they don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I did not come prepared to spout off statistics, but I guarantee you, the average weight of a CT patient has had to have skyrocketed. It skyrocketed just in the time I've been doing it. I can't even imagine if we took those statistics like back to the start of CT.
Yeah.
I twice this week I had patients who I had to scan unconventionally because they would not fit through the CT machine.
Yeah.
And that, like, from a CT tech's perspective, like, it's sad on so many levels. One, just that there's no support system there in helping those people get healthy. Two, it, for those of you that don't know, that increases your radiation dose. Like,
Yeah. Like a lot.
again, I could figure it out, but more than double.
Mm-hmm.
When I have to scan your head with both your arms up alongside of it because your shoulders won't fit through the gantry on a CT machine, you just got zapped real good.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got bigger problems probably than whatever's going on.
Right. Well, I
There.
mean, then there we go again with 30 years old, and unfortunately, you might be having a stroke.
Yeah.
At 30.
Crazy.
Anywho.
Any cool cases? I had a really cool case. I think it's funny because I think when I first started at this job, I was like, ectopic pregnancies and torsions, like they're so rare. Like you just don't see them that often. Spoke too soon. Have now had 3 ectopic pregnancies in the short time that I've been there, and also testicular torsion, who had to be transferred down to the university hospital for emergency surgery to save the nut. I've always seen torsion in older gentlemen. I'm not exactly sure how this happened. I have an idea around how this happened at 9:30 at night.
Jesus.
Just a thought. I don't know.
Close the blind.
Go look at the iPad and see what the history is there. Maybe, I don't know.
iPad causes
I bet you he never does that
torsion.
again, though.
Which might also be a very sad thing. Tried it for the first time.
That is so unfortunate, right?
Ended up with a dorsal.
Oh boy. Like, yeah, that's a lesson nobody needs to learn.
It is now entering the priesthood.
I don't doubt it. So, what about you? Anything crazy?
Let's see. Cool cases. I mean, I hate calling like tragedy cool. But I'll loop this back around. I had a little old lady who doing too much little old lady stuff. Like, old folks, know your limits. Call your kids, call the neighbor boy, something. Don't get up on a ladder. Too old to be doing what she was doing. 95. Took a tumble. Broke both of her top cervical vertebrae, C1 and C2. And I'm tying this in. So that one, I've never seen a C1, C2 fracture. But she didn't really complain of neck pain. So she came over without a C-collar on. Sitting bolt upright in her little stretcher, cute little thing. Had a nice little chat with her, started scanning, then the panic set in. So, and this ties into my funny healthcare story for the day. The weather changed here. The weather won't stop changing here. So we were down to 27 degrees the other night, which for us is in the South that's cold. What that has done is given me some sort of a sinus thing going on. It picks one of two presentations, which is either I can't breathe through my nose, I've instantly become a mouth breather,
That's fun for
or
Jim.
it is running like a faucet. So at the particular moment that I was scanning her, it started off, I could not breathe through my nose. So I see the scan, I go out, I'm like, listen, don't move. I need to call the doctor. So they want an exam that requires an IV and an angio of her head and neck. And she doesn't have a line because we thought she was going to be a dry head and neck. And so I have to start an IV. So I flipped the lights on, grabbed stuff, and the struggle is real, folks. Grab my gloves, get her all prepped up, and as I'm going to start the IV, and I'm past the point of committing, I have punctured skin, folks. We switch from stuffed nose to drippy faucet. So I'm leaning over, and I'm already in, but I'm not all the way in yet. And I can feel it dangling on the end of my nose. And I'm like, I can't drop snot on an IV site. Come on. So
I'm juking.
I'm doing the head juke as I'm actively dripping onto the floor, trying to dodge her arm. And she's moving a little bit. She's like, actually, that didn't hurt very much. And I'm like, Mima, you gotta stop moving. And I called a coworker. I'm like, hey, can I get some help in here? And they're misunderstood what I needed help with. I just really needed someone to blow my nose for me. No, they're like, hold on real quick, let me go grab gloves and all that. And they like disappeared back into the department. And I was like, no, not that kind of help. Like, I meant right now, help. Can you hold the paper towel underneath my nose so I can
you just put a mask on me, please, so it can just all come out?
Exactly. I'll catch my own drips. But that lasted literally about 3 minutes of me nose dodging while I'm holding this IV in place. I have now like covered the floor. It was a disaster, but when I was done, I could not stop laughing at like how comical the situation was, at how and she had no clue. All said and done, she goes, that was great, sweetie. And I was like, that was like the furthest thing from great ever.
But thank you.
But yeah, I'll pat myself on the back for not letting you know that that was a hot mess.
So after the IV is in, you guys do the angio. Any further findings?
I mean, she's got a broken nail. Vessel's patent. She's gonna spend. I mean, I don't think 95-year-old bones heal that fast. So,
I don't think so. But she didn't break a hip, because this is my morbid
thing. Like, I'm trying to figure out if she's just gonna live the rest of her life in a sea collar.
Yeah, because let's be honest,
and at 95, it literally could be the rest of her life.
You break a hip and
they don't break hips.
It's a curse. You're done.
Yeah, done. Ugh,
it's such bad
I hate
news.
saying that to people, though. I hate saying that. I don't say that to people, but like
a friend at work will say something like, "Oh, my grandma broke their hip," and you're like, "Oh." So we better start scheduling for her to go see grandma.
I'm not taking extra holidays next year.
Right. I have a boundary. Okay, I've got boundaries.
Rotten. All right, yeah. I don't know. I feel like that wraps up
the state of healthcare.
I could rant on healthcare forever.
Oh, I know. I mean, we've talked about this several times, like starting this whole separate podcast around like just, radiology. There actually is one. It's like a bunch of x-ray guys that sit around the table, like 6 of them, and they like shoot the shit. It's okay. I feel like we could do better. I feel like that about most things in life. I'm like, I feel like my brother and I could do better.
I
But I
will
don't think
start
they bring like Brad's into it or anything, because I know some of ours were like asking them the questions about, you know,
right.
like why this, why that. I also want to ask them some of the questions about the words that they use in their reports, because, you know, I used to have a thing when they'd say unremarkable, and I'm like, don't you dare call my exam unremarkable. You know, I've let that one go, but we have a new one who uses stigmata all the
Ooh,
time.
okay. Enlighten. What exact? I mean, I roughly know what stigmata is.
Yeah, I think it's like like no, like I think of sequelae is like this happened because of this. Like it's a sequelae of a disease process, but I think
Right.
stigmata might also be in that same
Okay.
realm. But he will literally use stigmata like 4 or 5 times in his report. I'm like, dude,
Okay.
find a synonym.
Learned a big word.
Yeah. Yeah. Read a journal,
I
saw
am actually
stigmata.
Googling this one.
Okay. And how you might put it into a radiology report. And he's the only one
Yeah.
that does it. But I thought it was interesting terminology. I mean,
A mental or physical mark that is characteristic of a defect or disease.
okay, so maybe he's seen something like in the scan that is a stigmata of a disease process.
Yeah. So, like I'm guessing, like a lucency is one for
Mm-hmm.
radiology.
What's the deal with stranding?
Small
Stranding in
lucency
the
seen. I think you could say, yeah, there, like stranding around your appendix or something like that. I
mm-hmm.
feel like you could say um the stigmata of appendicitis.
Yeah.
If you saw the stranding.
Yep.
Stranding marks the stigmata of appendicitis or
Yeah.
something like that. Wow, so
Take that
fancy,
to work and start using it. Let's see if we can
right?
spread the stigmata.
On the unremarkable. So that's like my favorite because I worked with a gentleman once who ended up coming through as a patient for a CT scan. We'll go chest, abdomen, and pelvis in case there's people out there that don't know. I can see all your bits and parts.
All the bits and parts.
All the bits and parts. So he
Everything.
gets his report back and it says liver, unremarkable, kidneys, normal, blah, 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 blah. It's like going down through his internal organs and ends with also noted unremarkable reproductive organs. The
Now
reason I bring
that
this
I
up
would
is
take personally.
right, exactly. That is, we just died. He's in my phone now as unremarkable reproductive organs.
And what they're really mean is
so
there's
offended.
nothing like nothing. There's nothing to see here. There's
right. Yep.
But using
Normal.
that word sometimes comes across as like, I mean, I don't know. When I think about, I'm like, I know some pretty unremarkable people.
Right.
That's not kind.
Yeah.
At least I've taken the personalization out of it for myself as far as my exam goes. I'm like, okay, it's actually good if it's unremarkable because I've shown them that there is no pathology.
Yep, there's nothing to say about it.
Yeah, letting go of these narratives one by one. I'm kicking them out. Okay, so any wisdom that has come into your realm?
My realm. Make sure you have a will.
Oh, geez.
I don't care if you're 21 or 121.
Yeah.
Have a will, people. Have a will.
Yeah. Have a will. And here's another piece of wisdom. When you get to a certain point in life, take into consideration that if you were going to exit this life, what are you leaving behind for your family members to deal with?
Yeah, we're talking just sheer amount of physical goods, folks.
Yep. Just
how many dish towels do you need?
Oh, yeah. I mean, dish towels is just the beginning of
so
many things. So many things.
Yes.
So be kind to your offspring.
Oh, yeah. Another one, your collection does not matter. to anybody but you.
The supplies,
Let
to
alone your
clothes,
30 collections.
shoes. What are he had some weird collections in there. Random
Coins.
animal teeth.
Coins, guitars,
Yeah.
fishing gear.
Yeah.
Um,
All the stuff to make flies, fishing flies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plethora of.
Apparently paintings. Who knew? Oh god, like I know I'm running several short just already on things.
Cookware and cooking
Cookware.
utensils.
Yeah. No one needs that many slotted spoons.
No.
One, folks, maybe two max.
Donate one every week to a family that needs a slotted spoon.
Amen.
Until you have one slotted spoon. And then that's the guy you keep forever.
I won't say again specifically where. I'll just say if you're in the nether regions of Colorado, start shopping Goodwill. There's going to be some good shit there soon.
Western Slope, people. Western Slope of Colorado. Good times coming. Okay.
That's my big one, though. Honestly,
wisdom,
Will's collections. That has dominated our lives for a while now.
Yeah.
It's going to continue to dominate our lives for a while now. And I hate to say that I'm learning all the lessons about what not to do, but it kind of has been that. Like from the beginning of the year till now, just the amount of things that I have learned to not do and not do to other people has like it could write a book.
We should write a book. We've always talked about writing a book, how not to do something, because we've always done it the wrong way.
We've always done it the other way.
So, maybe this is the universe laying it in our lap.
Yeah. I mean, take care of your affairs before you go, folks.
Yes. And on the flip side of that, whatever time you can spend with your aging, elderly family members, take the opportunity when you can. There's
100%. A phone call costs nothing.
Yep.
And I mean, I count that as spending time. I understand not everyone can travel transcontinental constantly, but a phone call costs nothing.
Yes, absolutely. So I have a little bit of fun wisdom, and you may not find this as funny as I did, and it could have possibly been in just context, but I was at work the other day and I was like not feeling super good, feeling very dramatic that day as well. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I just have cancer. So then
So you're extra.
Yes, extra whiny. And so then my coworker turns to me and she's like, you know what? My mom always said, as long as you're pooping and going to church, you're just fine. And I was like, well, 1 out of 2. I'm going to church these days, but 2. I sure am pooping. So I guess I'm not that bad off. So there's what to aim for.
I think that's, I especially down here, we'll just loop and loop and loop. I get a lot of patients that let me know that the reason I always ask my patients what the secret to being over 90 is. And I did have a gentleman this week tell me, stay away from places like this, meaning the hospital.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's in his 90s, so word, sir, I understand.
You're like, get your little notebook out and you're like, noted. This is like my diary of how to be a centenarian.
Yeah, but we can like put that into like, as long as you're pooping and going to church, stay the hell away from the hospital.
There's nothing for you here.
Yeah.
The Good other Lord. Wisdom that I want to share, this is to make you feel good, because we have a lifelong competition of who's smarter. And I have just heard about a study that proves, unfortunately, that you are smarter because when you have multiple siblings in a family, the oldest sibling typically takes on the role of teaching the younger siblings, not just like arithmetic, helping out with schoolwork, but also about life and how to function in life. And because of this, on average, the eldest sibling has 10 more IQ points than the next sibling below them. So there's your cake.
I realize I don't fully understand the whole IQ thing. I guess I am more familiar with the many brands of intelligence that there are, emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
and like I will never argue with you that you are book smarter than me for sure.
I just have a better memory, I think.
There's that, and and you have a way to like process it longer than me. I mean, I can definitely memorize like a maniac, but that's a limited window on how long I can regurgitate that. Um, I get what you were saying though. So, especially if you are like the good sibling that people confide in, um, which for a while I was to all of our siblings. I'm Switzerland. Um, Still am. Uh, you get to like see when you're everyone's confidant, you get to see their horrible, tragic mistakes. And you get to teach the other ones. Like, you don't always get to say why you know what you know.
Yeah.
Um, but you definitely have like gone down a whole bunch of different roads, um, and have learned what not to do. And as oldest, I mean, on that note, I've spent more time with our parents, our biological parents, than you
Sorry
have.
about that.
I've got
You've got 4 years on me with them.
no, but and I got the rough raw version of them.
Yes. I was too
Like
young to remember all the ending part, especially. Yeah.
right, but like so I got the rough raw version, and then you get the more refined, oh, we fucked that first one up. Um, let's not do that same thing. But I know what they're capable of. I know the levels of stupidity this could go to. And you
Oh
never got to
gosh.
see some of that.
Yeah.
But I get that. And I think oldest, I mean, every level of your children, like obviously there's whole fields of science on this. But the oldest, I think definitely you not only are your siblings confidant kind of thing a lot of times, but you're your parents confidant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and they assume you're older, you can handle it better, or like there's so much of that that comes if you're 4 years further in life and you like have your shit together, you become the dumping ground for everyone else to dump on.
Yeah.
Um,
Which isn't obviously the most healthy thing for
oh dear
parents
God, it's not
to
healthy.
be my kid's my confidant and the person that I go to for my sage wisdom and to dump all my
Right.
baggage on. Yeah,
No,
that's
for sure. But then I mean the good part of that is that I can get that from one end, and I can like I get to safeguard downstream of the crazy sometimes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so I get in that regard, like I'll take first place on that competition for sure.
There you go. That's one of those moments you can have your cake and eat it too.
Is this the marker of the tutor effect? Is that what that is?
Yep.
Okay. I like gonna have to deep dive on this a little bit and see.
Yeah.
Um,
Here's the problem.
I'm curious.
I mean, I think my addiction to books, my addiction to podcasts. I send people way too many podcasts to listen to. Very rarely do I hear back from anybody after I've sent a podcast of like, ooh, that was super cool, or like give feedback. And it's maybe because I'm just like flooding them with podcasts and they're like, I'm still listening to the first one you sent me. So sorry, people. I'm just excited about this stuff. And I think it's so cool. It was in a podcast. I will have to backtrack a little bit and figure out which podcast that was in. I'm almost 99% sure that it was in the Huberman Paul Conti series, but I'm not. I'll track that down so that you can hear the whole story on it.
Okay.
So this is a good segue into our show and tell. So what we are reading, watching, listening to. So as far as the Huberman Paul Conti series, like, I don't know how, if you want to dive too much into it, I just wanted to touch on this as a recommendation, as a really great series to listen to around mental health. I think that Paul Conti is probably one of the most intelligent human beings I've come across. And he did a 4-part series with Huberman, kind of really diving deep into relationship with self, how we identify our structure of self and function of self, how we function in relationships. He's also a specialist when it comes to trauma. So I think he brings that lens into it, which is also very helpful in giving kind of tools and tactics of how you can navigate the mental health arena for yourself without having to necessarily bring a therapist in. It's because there is limited access to mental health providers right now.
Oh,
So
my word. That's insane.
It's horrible.
And
Horrible.
and capitalism at its best.
Yes. I know.
Because there's a shortage. Literally the cost of seeing someone has skyrocketed. Which so
And
so sad that this is monetized.
It is sad. It is sad. And it's like, I have done some work with like BetterHelp, and I wouldn't, and maybe I did, again, they have a lot of different therapists. You can switch at any time, no cost, but I have not gotten what I considered quality therapy using that service. That's just my opinion. But I mean, that's just one opinion. And I've always been better about the go to the therapist's office in person versus doing the Zoom stuff. But
I wonder if everybody feels this way, but I always feel like, yeah, your stuff is tough, but you should come spend a day in my shoes. And in this case, I'm going to say, no. Like, I'm not saying other people's problems aren't problems, but I feel sometimes like things like BetterHelp are ill prepared for what is our lives.
Yeah, they're not
like the sheer volume of stuff that we could say has happened in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
I think exceeds
it's outside their pay scale.
Like someone's single issue discomfort versus trauma. Like, does that make sense? Like,
well, and the other thing that so the recommendation that I had gotten from friends who are psychologists and psychiatrists was, when you do have the trauma, one of the better modalities to help with that is EMDR. So it's the eye movement desensitization thing. Yeah. So they're like, you need to do this. It may not work, but it shows pretty good outcomes.
Gotta try it.
Now really go try to find an online provider that does EMDR.
Right.
Hard to find. I have been for almost 3 months, maybe even almost 4, and have been like searching for a provider that does EMDR, cannot find a single one.
Right. So my suggestion to you, just because I literally just had a friend that did this, and but I feel like Arizona is going to function geographically kind of the way Oregon does, where you've got Portland and then everything else kind of echoes out in size. Salem is not a small town. Yeah. I know providers in Salem. So spent some time with my homies back in Oregon. God bless them.
God bless Oregon.
People ever. Yeah. No, God bless the people in Oregon. But she had to drive to Portland.
Okay. So this would be like going to Phoenix, like looking in Phoenix.
Yes. So I would suggest you look in Phoenix. The same of where I am at, which we're not going to say. I would have to look in the other place that's here.
Yeah.
And
the Big Inn.
Yeah, and see about going to Nashville.
Ash dirty.
I'm guessing. I just
Yeah.
don't think where I'm at,
Yeah.
that would just culturally, I don't think where I'm at would even remotely be open to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like coming from Oregon. When I first got here, I looked up like sound baths,
Yeah.
which is like on every damn corner where I'm from. Like there's 7 or 8 within walking distance every night.
Yep.
um, and it took me to some really hysterical Google results, but no,
But
no,
no.
not here.
Yes. And we'll circle back to that mentality when we start talking about wild country.
Yes.
So yes. Do you have anything to add to the Huberman Paul Conti series other than it was just a
Um,
great series about mental health?
no, I mean, just a shout out to Huberman Lab. Like, I definitely am addicted. I listen all the time. This is what I'll say about some of the bigger podcasts we listen to, and your comment on flooding my inbox with your latest and greatest. I cannot keep up. There's so much, and I'm looking at the Paul Conti one right now.
I think
was the
all of them were
length?
like 2-hour-ish episodes.
Yes.
So it's a series of 4, 2 hours each. So now we're talking 2, 4, 6, 8, math girl right here. 8 hours. You know, that's a work day. That is a work day for some
exactly.
people.
And let's pair that up with what I was saying about my schedule.
Yes.
I actually am most of the way through it. I'm looking right now. Episode 3 of 4.
Yeah.
I have 33 minutes left on it. Always great. He has the best guest ever. I just don't. I can't digest all of it. I can listen to most of it. Yeah. It's really hard to digest that much stuff.
Yes. So I guess my recommendation, I very rarely listen to the 2-hour-long podcasts all the way through, unless it's like maybe on my Sunday self-care Sunday.
Are you note hopping? Are you bookmark hopping down a
little bit
the podcast? Okay.
Yeah, but if it's like middle of the week and like, okay, you know, my fave right now is Rich Roll. I love the man. He also does 2-hour-long podcasts. So I will say, while I'm getting ready for work in the morning, I'll turn it on. When it's time to go to work, I pause it, shut down podcast, go to work, do my thing. The next morning when I'm getting ready to go to work, I'll continue where I left off, and I'll do it in little in segments. Self-care Sunday is something I implemented for myself years back, where it's like Sunday is the day, like you can get out of bed late. There's really no chores or anything need to be taken care of. That was all done on Saturday. So it's like you do whatever you need to do to fill your cup today. And for me, I'm the nerd who podcasts fill my cup. I love it. I love it. I love listening to the conversations. I love the different topics. I love the different perspectives. And it's something that I don't have to exert a whole lot of energy, maybe other than my noodle, to participate in. I can just lay on the couch, snuggled up with Crosby, and podcast out for a couple hours. Then I'll listen to maybe a 2-hour-long one. But what I find too, as evidence when I'm like, I'll have to go back and find what podcast that was from, I don't integrate well. Like I don't take notes as I'm going through the stuff that really hits, and then say, how can I apply this into my life? Because I'm just consuming so much.
Okay. So that's where, like, as we continue to do this is going to be the hardest part for me, is because I consume. And then they do not help, because we've talked about this in the past. Same guest pops across 4 of your favorite podcasts in the same week, and there's like nuggets in each of them, but then you can't remember which one they dropped that little nugget on. So God forbid you have to go back and listen to one of them twice. You've just added 2 hours to your let alone then they may be offset by a week. So you're mentally back with this podcast, but this one's moved on to a different guest, and now you've got like mental health on one side and physical strength on the other. And
Right.
I get them. I'm like, Paul Conti, wasn't he the go to the gym more often guy? No, 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 no. That wasn't him. That was like
Kelly, someone or
I
other.
yes, and
Yeah.
I totally am guilty of trying to relax and listen to podcasts, and I make it 17 minutes in. Um, and then I wake up 4 podcasts later that I've slept
Yeah.
through the entire thing.
Especially if it's Sam
Especially
Harris.
Sam Harris and even Huberman for me. Turn on your sexy voices, boys. Um, Daddy's taking a nap. Like it's it is
It's a
sweet,
thing.
sweet sleep for me. Like
I
the
use Sam
moment
to
they
go to
start
sleep.
talking, like all of it just relaxes,
Yes.
and I'm down for the count.
Yes.
Um, let's not
So
even talk
true.
about our crazy lives on top of it. Like just that's probably all the therapy I need. I just need the two of them talking to my ear a couple times a week.
Yeah.
Crystal.
Yes. So all of our listeners, check it out, the Huberman Paul Conti series. I will drop a link into the show notes that will lead you to those episodes. Great listen. There's also some great free resources that Paul offers, some downloadables and PDFs that help kind of put some visuals to what they talk about that I think they're fantastic. So check that out. So now Rich Roll. Although, I'm going to say like the last couple weeks, I've been like meh on the Rich Roll guests. But it always seems like I go through periods of meh. And then there's the one that's like awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So the Rich Roll Brad Stolberg episode. Brad Stolberg is an author, multiple time author. He just came out with a new book called Master of Change. And this was another 2-hour episode, but what I liked about it was we talk about change. We talk about identity. I think those are two areas within my coaching that I really like to work with, is helping people with identity shifts or identifying their identity. But there was also some like scientific portions of this that I thought were really cool. And then I had a big gripe against Stolberg on one thing. So they talk about self-complexity. This is also the same thing like fluid identity, having a diverse parts of yourself. And studies have shown that people with higher self-complexity are also have higher resistance or resilience when it comes to change.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting. Then there was the allostasis, which I've heard this growing up as a science kid, but I never really saw it from this perspective that we try to go back to what we think is homeostasis. But if we stayed in homeostasis, just going back to that baseline, we never evolve. Whereas allostasis it's change, order, reorder, right?
Right.
So it's like you come out on the other side different, but that's good because you've evolved into something better.
Absolutely. One place that I was thinking about listening to that is I don't have it in me to do the same job for 40 years. Kudos to those who can. But that's where it hit home for me, is that I looked especially at my work history. I've been everything, people.
Literally everything, people.
If I reach what I would consider homeostasis, I am wildly uncomfortable. I need the challenge. I need the constant change. It's why imaging works so good for me, is because the technology is constantly evolving. The patient acuity is constantly evolving. That like it presents a challenge at all times. Just when you think this is like it all, Here comes the next freak through the door, that will blow your mind. Um, and I don't, I could not be the label stamper at the label stamp factory, for eternity. I would get, that's worse than solitary confinement for me. I'm sure of it. So I totally related to, I plan into my future, what I feel is a healthy amount of change at all times.
Yeah.
I always have something that I want to try new, want to, and struggle with.
Mhm.
Anything you start new, you're going to struggle with it first, unless you're just one of those freaks. Um, but that keeps life interesting for me, in so many different ways.
Yeah. And there's probably a scientific explanation to that too, because we've now figured out that like dopamine, we thought it was like getting all the likes and stuff on Instagram was your dopamine, but no, it's the actual like the process of achieving what you want.
Yeah,
So it's the
it's the
novelty.
expectation
Yeah.
of achieving, and then eventually, um if you know you're going to achieve it because you have not changed it,
Yeah.
it loses its,
Punch.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
wah,
big
wah,
bang.
wah.
Wah, wah.
Try again.
um no, and I can relate to that same thing. Like, I just, that is, I'm definitely the dopamine addict kind of thing. We've talked about this with other things in my
Mhm.
life, um that I feel like if we talk about substance abuse a little bit, um the the success point forward is the letdown. It's the ramp up to that moment, that is the exhilaration, and the all the way up until the actual reality is the fun part, and then the actual reality sucks. um and I also wonder if that's not because the dopamine hasn't already released, and then, you're on your way down, and I just,
Mhm.
boo. um I definitely see that in my life in
Yeah.
so many places.
Yeah. It's, but I think it was interesting because I think Rich kind of brought about this point. He's like that we as humans, we have to get more comfortable with uncertainty. We have to get more uncomfortable with the idea of impermanence. And we have to become more understanding that transformation is something that's not going to stop. Like we're always
Right.
in transformation. And like
Yes.
while one transformation is
You should be.
happening and it's coming to an end, another one is boop right there around the corner, ready to smack you in the face. It never stops. There's just this. I think it's actually one of the Iron Man like sayings is life was one big transition.
Right.
So true. So we need to get comfortable with this, people.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, someday we can talk deep into, Buddhism and stuff like that, but like, basic tenet, um is expectation, right? Like, that's the source of all
Attachment. Yep.
sorrow. Yeah, attachment. Well, yeah, attachment to the idea of an outcome,
Yes. Yes.
um
We're thinking that
is the
something's going
source
to
of
be
all
there forever.
suffering. Yeah.
Like I think with the way Rich said it, he was like, we have this like weird thing where we think everything should stay the same. And when it doesn't, all of a sudden it's wrong that it has not stayed the same. And we get all in this like huffle about like, well, why does this have to change? Why? And it's like, because this is progression, people. This is evolution. This is transformation into something bigger and better. I firmly believe that. I firmly believe if you are in a discomfort zone, that's a good thing because you're growing in some way,
Oh
shape, or
yeah.
form. It's not fun being in it, but also the more that you just like relax your chaps and just be in the discomfort and become okay with the discomfort, the more changes that you're going to go through, the more discomfort zones, you are able to manage them so much better.
That, I think, being a little self-aware, and I will go one caveat to that, which is I know in my gut whether it's good discomfort or bad discomfort. I I mean, sometimes I make some changes, and the moment I make those changes, I recognize this doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not this doesn't feel good in a changes is new and I don't like it, as much as a I know better than this.
Yeah.
I
This
I
is out
knew
of
better than
alignment.
to yes, this is out of alignment. And if that's the change that's being made, I think you need to listen to your gut. Um, and then you get into that like fine line of like, is this me convincing myself out of it? Um, or
So my
or is
coach
this me
probably hates
really
me because I'm like, here's,
right?
here's the change. And I know, that I need to be okay with like where I'm at with this. But then, then I start to rationalize and I'm like, am I just using this as an excuse to not do the thing because the thing is hard?
Right.
Or and I'll come up with all these scenarios and she's like, you just gotta you gotta listen and like shut the rationalizer
Right.
down, take the mind out of it
Yep.
and use your body to listen to it, which I think a lot of people
Yeah.
have not really honed that skill so much.
No, I think most people haven't honed that skill. I mean, and we've discussed this ad nauseum, but like that's that mind, body, soul connection kind of thing. Getting those three things in touch with each other makes it so much easier to recognize I'm physically uncomfortable, but this is good for my soul, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Despite what my mind is telling me.
Yes.
All right.
So the only thing I did not agree with Stolberg on this is he brought up a point about excavating the past. Like Rich was saying, a lot of times we're in these patterns because of traumas, things that have happened, like our subconscious is running the script. And
Right.
Brad said, I think that excavating the past is a trap. It's over, just get over it. And it's like, that's a very
Ooh.
easy thing to say for somebody maybe who hasn't experienced a big T trauma. I do think you have to get down to the subconscious level and change those thoughts and change those beliefs before you can move forward and say the past is the past. It just felt very insensitive.
Boy, I'm gonna go like right down the middle of the road on this. I truly, this is probably not a popular belief with people. I think there's a fine line. Um, I think, and I think you and I have discussed this at times. Um, I think there's becoming aware and dealing with stuff, and then I think there is taking it on as your identity, which I believe anchors you. It becomes your ball and chain,
Yeah.
and you start identifying as that,
As the victim.
and yeah, as the victim, as the trauma survivor, as the and you find your homeostasis there.
Right.
um and I don't have the magic answer for how long that is. um but I can agree with him on that side that move on. Like there's got to be a solid plan for getting out of this. Like I absolutely think you need to go down and take a look at it. Um but I think staying down there is dangerous.
Yes.
And I don't have the answer for what you went through. By you, I mean the general you.
The
What you
collective
went
you.
through.
The
Yeah, the
collective
collective
you.
you. I don't have the answer for what you went through. Um, but I also know I'm gonna like butt this up against my other pet peeve with this kind of stuff, which is someone else telling me my appropriate response.
Yeah.
I'll say, yeah, these are the things that have happened in my life, and they're like, oh well, you haven't processed those, and I'm like, nope, solidly processed. No, no, you're like,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
no, no. I process. We can talk about them at length if you would like. We could dig into all the dirty corners. Um, I'm cool with the way my life has gone. And well, no, you need to work through. No, work done.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think it's more like, I look at it from, you need to excavate to a point where you understand the pathology that has caused this way of thinking, or the subconscious way of thinking, the beliefs that are playing that you're not even really aware of. And then that's how I see meeting yourself where you're at. It's like, okay, that happened and I know why that happened. And
Yep.
there's an explanation for the things that have happened, but
Sure.
it's done. Now I need to move forward with that knowledge into the next space of my life. Like, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be there.
It's always,
but it
be there.
doesn't have to be the
It's
reason
not steering
or the
the car.
storyline.
Like, it's not at the steering wheel.
Yeah.
It's always going to be there, but it doesn't always have to be the focus. I mean, something else that it took me a long time, and I guess we could tie this into little T trauma, kind of. I don't know. Being gay to me is that same way. Like, especially when I first came out, I thought I needed to tell everybody, and I had to hang the flag outside my house every Pride Month, and I needed to. And there are still valuable points to that for me, and things that I definitely agree. I think it's important to be visible, but somewhere along the way, I fell off my own gay wagon. And it does not define my every decision. There's so many other facets of who I am that I don't know why I was leading with that one.
Mm-hmm.
I look at that as having worked through, we'll call it that issue.
You process that issue.
Yeah, I processed that issue that I needed to hang on to that identity. And then I realized, nope, always going to be there. Always going to be there. And I can be so much more. And that, that I no longer need to just jump right out and lead with that part of my life.
Yeah.
That's not to say I'm not proud. It just means sometimes there's things I'm prouder of.
Yeah.
I get it, and I see it as a process, and I try and be super patient. But I mean, like, some of the most hilarious people to me to be around are new gays, because I see myself so much there. Of everything they do has to be gay. Everywhere they go has to be gay. Like, oh my God, can't we just go to a straight bar for lunch?
And you're,
Jesus.
I know, it's kind of cute in the sense of, it's like, oh, they're out there in the discovery phase in the wild. And it's like, but they want to feel, I think it's comfort in that group, that like, they know that they're accepted. That's a norm. Until you get comfortable in that identity. And then you're like, I don't care if we go to the gay bar or if we go to the straight bar or if we go to, because it's now rooted in you. It's just a piece of you that you're comfortable with.
But the world opens up so much, and I'll say this for both of those issues. The world opens up so much when you don't have to lead your life that way.
Yes.
That doesn't mean live your life that way. It just means lead with it.
Yep.
You suddenly figure out that you have a right to be everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and you can be anything.
Yes. And I feel the same way with the trauma stuff. Like, you can be what happened to you, or you can be so much more.
Yeah.
Who had that happen to you.
Yes.
And as long as you're part, that's the only thing I'll say as far as, like, I definitely see the point in in excavating. And I don't want to say bury it again, because that would be the wrong analogy. But just because you excavated it doesn't mean it belongs in a museum.
Yes.
Sometimes you can
I
just
almost look
excavate
at
it and
this
it
as
can go to
like
the junkyard.
excavating a body. This is probably pretty gross. Like, here we go with my dark humor again. But like, if you excavated a body out of the ground and then you just left
it's dead.
it there, right? Okay. Over time, it's going to just dissipate. It's just going to disappear. It's going to be eaten up by the trees and the plants that are around it.
Right.
It's going to be exposed to rain and wind that's going to chip away at it. Eventually, it's going to be gone.
Right.
And that's kind of how I see it. It's like you've excavated it, and now it's a piece of you. It's a part of you. It's a part of the story. But
sure,
it's just it just is
right
resolving on its own.
And I mean, to use your analogy, sometimes I think it's important you have to excavate it and figure out what happened. And then I think you owe it to yourself and everyone around you to put it back in the ground and leave it there.
Yeah.
Or
let it go.
Get your answers and then channel your inner Elsa.
I think that's a big piece of it. I can't speak to all trauma survivors, but I think it's like once you understand how it impacted your patterns, your behaviors, why you did some things that you didn't, then you're able to make that connection, be like, oh, okay. It just brings context to things that for a long time you were like, why do I do this shit? Like, why am I doing this stuff? That doesn't make sense. It makes sense of it. And then it's like, okay, now I've made sense of it. I brought context to it. And I know the patterns that came out of this. So I know where the work is for me now.
Yes.
Done.
Yep. They're done.
That's the purpose that I needed.
So what I was going to say is sometimes you're an asshole because of the trauma you've been through, but sometimes you're just an asshole. Yeah. It's not all going to relate, and who you are going forward doesn't all have to be rooted in that.
No,
it doesn't have to be the seed of everything you become.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, like I said, maybe an unpopular opinion, but
yeah,
maybe
we should get Paul Conti on here to talk with us about this.
I'd love to.
Oh boy. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick time check with you because it's almost 4.
Yeah, so I've got a little bit of time left.
Okay.
But I'm going to say the last thing on the show and tell list we needed to save for. I need to do some binge watching. I already watched it twice.
I think I'm going to save Sapolsky's The Free Will because that's a long conversation.
Yes. That is a very long conversation.
I'm going to save Sam Harris because, again, a long conversation there.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm going to go into, I have some general topics to cover. Loneliness.
Okay, but I have a question for you first. This is my show and tell. I'm like 3 pages in, because I couldn't help. But did you get it?
No, because I got broke and I couldn't afford it.
Oh, bitch, call me. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
This one's on me. Okay.
Is it that good?
I don't know if it's that good yet. I just it just showed up the other day.
What was his last one?
Inward.
No, then he
Inward,
did
it was like.
Then he did the one about social activism and change.
Was it Lighter? No.
Yes.
Lighter, Clarity and Connection, Inward. Okay, Lighter was the last one.
Yes. Inward was the one I think I had read. Clarity and Connection. Inward came out, and that was the first time I introduced him to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
But Lighter was
No. You gave this to me. Which one was the first book of poems?
Wasn't that? Oh no, it was Inward. Was the first one. Inward was first.
Okay.
I gave you Clarity and Connection.
You gave me Clarity and Connection. I went back and bought Inward, and then Lighter came out, and that actually required work.
Yes.
And I just was not in a space-time loop that was going to be possible, so I still have it. This is back to poetry. And where am I at? I'm on page 20. And so far, it's everything that young Pueblo should be.
Okay, sum it up. Okay, so then what I'm
excited
gonna
to read
do,
it, and I will get the copy to you, and then we should definitely discuss it next month.
okay, so I'm gonna write that down. YP. What's
Yeah,
the
and
name
I
of
will
this one?
prioritize that. This one is The Way Forward. How relevant to what we were just talking about.
Jesus Christ, young
Meant to
Pueblo.
fucking be.
God, meant to be. Okay, so we're gonna discuss that. So I'm gonna wrap this sesh up here with
Okay.
just some quickie fun things to chat about.
Okay.
I sent you a link to a thing called New Calm.
Okay.
So it's basically,
did you text this to me or did you email this to me?
I texted it to you from it was like from their thing of like, share this with a friend. So basically it's like binaural beats that you put your headphones in. They say noise canceling headphones are the best. Then you put like your little sleep shade on, but my head's so small that none of the sleep eye covers ever fit me. It's a tragedy. And then you just lay down, you put a blanket over you. There's all these different biodisc tracks like sleep. There's one for recover. There's one for creativity. There's one for concentration, yada, yada, yada. So you put it on and it's these binaural beats, like the swooshy. There's some that get super like drum and bassy for sure. But the idea is that it's like, it helps to regulate your nervous system. And so when I saw that, I'm like, sign me up, dysregulation over here. So it hasn't been overly effective to me. But last Tuesday, I put on the Restore, which is supposed to be what you listen to give yourself energy to get up and go do the things.
Okay.
And it says in the informational section, if you twitch, you know it's working because it's helping you to relax those muscles that are being controlled by the parasympathetic system.
Okay.
So started getting the twitchies and I'm like, oh yeah, it's working. And it had me falling like this whoop, whoop. I mean, I was in another fucking reality. Then all of a sudden, my forehead right here starts crazy twitching. And I'm like, is this normal? I don't know. Is this normal? So the whole session finishes up. And the first thing I thought is like, I need to take a nap. So I rolled over. This is after sleeping for almost 8 hours. I rolled over, laid my head down, and I slept for another 7.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
Out like a baby. Now, that's not what that track was intended for.
Not intended for that.
But what did that say?
Or was it?
So, I mean, it's my newfound technology that I think is maybe kind of cool. They only give you a 7-day trial, but I would say do the 7-day trial. There's no adverse effects to New Calming out all day long. Use it as much as you want. So there's my experiment for you for next episode. I want to hear what your New Calm experience is. Here's another question that I sent to you in text, and I have a multimedia for this because I feel like I need an answer to what exactly is a Chickacheri Cola. So this comes from the Savage Garden song.
Okay, so these are some of my favorite TikToks. Are misheard lyrics. Like, I absolutely love misheard lyrics. That we should definitely come up with like a 2-liner for reference of what the actual lyric is.
Yes.
And what we misheard it as growing up. I will just listen to it on your own free time. I got busted. The last one I can remember doing horribly bad came in like a wrecking ball. Oh, and this goes back to the everything had to be gay. I literally thought the song came in like a rainbow.
There are so many of these songs. So like Guns N' Roses.
So the next time, download Miley Cyrus's Wrecking Ball and listen and just sub the word rainbow for wrecking ball.
Okay.
And then picture 40-year-old me belting this out at the top of my lungs, only to find out I may have been off completely.
Yes. Eddie Vedder comes to mind too. Is it Ledbetter? What the fuck is he actually saying?
Eddie Vedder. I don't think Eddie knows what Eddie Vedder's saying.
I think Eddie was really high when he recorded Ledbetter.
Good for Eddie.
Oh
God
boy.
bless Eddie.
Okay. And then this is the other thing. I don't know if it's going to show up on Zoom. I texted you the other day and I'm like, look what happens on your iPhone when you click the side button 3 times fast, right?
Okay.
3 times fast. See how it turns purple?
The power. Okay, the power button.
This long guy.
What did you tell me? It has to be in lock screen or something?
Yeah, just in lock screen and then 3 fast clicks and back to normal.
Okay, lock screen.
Yep. What the hell?
1, 2, 3.
Watch. Can you see the change? Oh, now we're just dialing emergencies. It turned my whole hue to purple. And then if I do it 3 times, it clicks it back to norms.
Okay. If anyone out there sees
what is this deal?
can explain to her. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Just you.
Okay.
Just
1,
you.
2, 3. Normal. 1, 2, 3. Boop. Purple.
It's you.
So, okay, people out there, listeners, help me out.
That's you. I literally cannot. I tried forever that day.
Week.
And then I'm jealous that your phone's fucked up. Because I want a fucked up phone. And I literally sat here for like the next, I don't know, 45 minutes. 1, 2, 3. No. 1, 2, 3. No. It's you.
Okay. All right, man. Great first episode of Wide Open Aperture. So we will see you back in about a month. In the meantime, listeners, again, if there's anything that you would like us to talk about, to discuss, if you've got a problem, an issue in your life, if you've got something that you're having a hard time making a decision, I feel like between the two of us, we have a lot of life experience. Happy to share some perspective and
fire them off. I am an expert at giving advice and horrible at taking it.
Yes. Me too. Maybe that's in our DNA.
Yeah.
Great.
Maybe.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Brian, for showing up today and for all of your contribution to the first episode of Wide Open Aperture. So we'll see you guys in a month.
Bye.
Bye.